In today's episode of Brewed and Boozed, we speak to JessAnn Zimlich, used barrel broker at H&A Barrel Management, about the importance of barrels in the alcohol world. We also chat with her about the sustainability practices in the industry. We learned this week that JessAnn is leaving H&A to work on her own passion project, but this interview was too good not to air. We can't wait to talk with her about her next adventure. Welcome to Brewed and Boozed. JessAnn, who is a barrel sales.
Yes. Used barrel sales.
So tell us a little bit about how did you get into this barrel world?
Right. Well, I live in Kentucky, so I feel like if you're in Kentucky, you some way make it into the bourbon industry. Former social worker by trade, worked at the health department, worked at a hospital, did a derby event, and saw a bourbon tour company and wanted to book a bourbon tour. And then a couple months later, they were hiring for a job, and I'm like, it was a part-time job, and I was going to be moving to Louisville at the time, and I'm like, I'll just take a part-time job coordinating bourbon tours for this company. So coordinated bourbon tours for 2 years, over 100,000 people.
Oh my gosh.
Custom bourbon tours. Met a lot of people, made a lot of friends. Was recruited by Fred Minnick, who's a spirits author and critic, and worked under him for about a year and a half. And then a recruiter reached out to him and was looking for a job for this company that I work for now. It's H&A Barrel Management. And he was like, I think you should apply. So first I was like, are you trying to fire me, Fred? Because I thought we were friends here and I love working for you. But he was like, no, I know you have kids and you have this. Like, a company can offer you more than I can as an individual. You know, you have health insurance, you have this. And he's like, it's just smoozing people. That's what you like to do anyway. Like, you don't want to be in the office. And I'm like, you're right. So I started interviewing for H&A, and it's a financial company. So the job that I had applied for was the barrel leasing account manager, which I'm in sales, I'm not in finance. So they created another position for sales of all the barrels that were in the wineries for the spirits industry, because they're like, you know a lot of people, you have a lot of connections and a lot of friends, you know the industry, you can teach other things you can't teach, human interaction and how to meet people and how to interact. So I interviewed January 2020 and got hired July 1st of 2020. So it took a long time, and I've been doing that. Yeah.
And it was 2020.
And it was 2020,
yes.
But the company is French, so yeah, lockdowns for sure, just crazy stuff. And the headquarters in the United States are in Napa, so I'm completely across the country from where I was hired. So it was a lot of Zoom and that kind of thing. Yeah, because spirits, people are always drinking. There's a used barrel shortage now because a lot of the distilleries were telling cooperages, we don't need anything. We don't know what's going to happen with the world. We don't know if people are going to be drinking. We can't, this and that and that. So distilleries didn't plan, for the growth of how much people are going to, love to drink during COVID. And so they just didn't plan to order wood in advance and glass and this, which we have all these shortages now because people, and we're not shocked, people like to drink.
To learn about, so obviously, selling or helping sell barrels, did you have to go through any sort of training on how a barrel was made or what's in them? Was there a process for that? Or?
I'm still learning. So when I first started out, I was first I have to sell these barrels, but in order to sell something, you need a good story. Everything is a good story. Mm-hmm. So it's I have to learn the wineries. I have to learn what winery came from, how to pronounce these wines. I'm a whiskey drinker, and I'm so yeah, it was a lot of, first of all, understanding wine, what was in the barrel for me for the first year, and then the last year, it was a lot about like logistics and how can I best serve clients as far as like getting barrels here and timing, like things I'm not. I hate that kind of things on a computer, like this, like being super organized. And then about like 10, 11 months ago, I'm like, I really just love the barrel. So it's not so much like the wineries or this, it's like I love the wood, you know? So I took like, you know, there's one class that Andrew Webrink at ISC teaches, and it's all about barrels. It's like an $1,800 course, like 2 days all about American oak and like the flavors and this and that and all, like that last slide on my slideshow is like the barrel compounds and what you taste. So I started really getting into it. And then I met my boyfriend Zach at a conference, and he has a barrel cooperage. So he makes new American oak barrels, and over the last like 10 months dating him, I'm like really obsessed because they have a stave mill, so they're cutting from the tree. He goes in, you know, from the tree all the way through. And so yeah, I'm very much like this and that and this and that. Like, how do I put it together? How do I fix it? What tree was it? Like, yeah, I down the rabbit hole.
Now, barrels are predominantly made from oak?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, different kinds of oak, predominantly American oak and French oak. All your other oaks are going to be a lot more porous. So you have like that Japanese Mizunara, which is known to be like a leaker, which is all still oak.
There's a distillery in Gonzales, which is about 40 minutes from here, and they make rum, and they had a great experiment with the barrel. They took the rum and put it in we believe it's a wine barrel. It's been a minute.
I don't remember which flavor.
Then they had, and they're really into local ingredients, so they had a guy who made honey.
Yes.
And so they put the honey in the barrel.
Love honey cask. I don't personally because they leak honey
It was
and that's what he said. They like it made a total mess, but it was delicious.
Yes. Nelson Brothers, Greenbrier. Yeah, they had a honey release that people like stand in line for, a lottery.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
And he was actually hoping that he could then put rum back in and get the honey.
No.
But
no, it was leaking
so
like a sieve.
So the honey will like seriously just like, and so in order to keep a honey barrel from leaking, you literally have to like be spraying it like 3 times a day on the outside. Something I would never deal with. I'm like, I know a guy who has bees.
yeah. But so I thought that was interesting. Now you sell to distilleries. We drank a beer once where it had gone from the winery to the distillery to the brewery.
Yes.
Do you
Yes,
go
I
that far
love
down
breweries.
the chain?
So I did stay away from breweries for the longest time because I'm like, beer people are so intimidating. You know, it's like wine people. Like they know what they're doing. I don't want to be offensive by like so I've also been really into the beer scene and getting more into it. We actually have a client that distills and then they take their own whiskey and put it into their beer, but they use our wine casks first. So that barrel is like 30 years old the time they're done with it. I do like beer guys. They're a lot like wineries too. You have to be a lot more like safety protocols.
Right.
Cleanliness. Distilleries are easy because you can just throw in barrels and they're filling them, but breweries are like, we can't have this, can't have this, can't have that.
How long does a barrel usually last? Like if you're taking it from the winery and then using it, like
as long as you're treating and you can do like simple repairs. I mean, the oldest cask I have that I've been a part of, it was like 58 years old.
Oh wow.
And then I have some Armagnac cask on the way, and they're like 30, 32. But the older it gets, like the more you have to like nurture it.
The care, yeah. Does seem like a lot of care to keep it, you know.
Yeah, but I do feel, I'm like, oh, I can just take it to the cooperage and Zach can fix it for me. So that's like really nice. I'm like, okay, will you fix my barrel?
That's awesome. That's awesome.
So now I was intrigued in your talk about taking the barrels and reshaping them and sort of basically recycling them from scratch, not just putting.
Yes, so that's the Shave Toast Rechar program. So instead of that barrel just being like done with, because you know it's been wined 4 times, you could sell it off, but to get the most value, it's like let's refresh it. Like they take it apart stave by stave and shave each stave down, but it makes a mess. So it's really hard to find partners who want to do it. And then retoast it. Yeah, I think that's awesome too. To me, that's like the most sustainable way.
That's really cool.
For the tree. I'm like, oh, you don't have to send it into furniture. It doesn't have to be mulch right now. You know,
Right.
it could be refreshed. And one tree, so American oak, like you're with 1.2 trees for one barrel.
Oh, wow.
For one barrel. So, like, if you have like the largest barrel company, obviously, is Independent Stave Company, and they're doing upwards of like 2.5 million barrels a year.
Wow.
So I'm sure the trees are fine, but to me, I'm like, that's what, like 2.5. That's just that cooperage.
Yeah.
That's just the biggest, like 2.5 million trees a year. What does that mean for, like, you know? So let's recycle them. Let's treat them like they should be treated.
Yeah, that's great that there's a way to, like, again, refresh them and reuse them instead of just, like, throwing them out or, you know, putting them into the fire kind of thing. Like, that's great.
Where do the American oak, do they grow?
So American oak is what Eastern Kentucky, I feel horrible for not knowing, like the Ozarks, Missouri has a lot of American oak, Arkansas, and then Kentucky. Yes, this like little chunk is where all the American oak is grown, like at all.
Oh, okay.
And I know there's some up north, but if it's more hilly, if a tree grows on a hill, it compromises the grain structure because it's not like going straight up. So if you're on more hilly lands, like that barrel is more likely going to leak once it becomes a barrel. That tree is, because it's like been fractured. Or if it's in a storm. My family's farm was hit by a tornado, I guess 2 years ago, and destroys like so much lumber that could have been harvested. But once it's in a storm, you can't even harvest it because it's been fractured on the inside. Those like the veins, and it'll leak.
What makes a good barrel?
The barrel itself is having educated cooperages who know and have been making barrels, and it starts at the tree, being able to inspect the oak, any defects, the rings in the right place, and using it really quickly when you get it. So I know, like at Zach, any cooperage, they make them that day, they ship them out, and they're like, fill it as soon as you get it.
Oh, wow.
So it could have been a barrel for like 2 days, and it's already full.
Oh, wow.
And also, as far as what makes a good barrel, you have to air dryer your staves. You have to let them be exposed to the elements so that the tannins and stuff can be like ripped out. You have to put them in a kiln so they get dry enough, because you can't have like green wood, and it's a whole, like, it's an art, which I think is like super cool.
Are the cooperages mostly families that do it? Like they've been doing it for generations?
Yeah. ISC's been, gosh, I don't know how long they've been, forever. And just Zach's cooperage, his grandpa was working at Brown Forman. He retired from Brown Forman's cooperage at 65, I guess, and then started Zach Cooperage in 89. He's still alive, he's 94. But he was president of Jack Daniels and was at Brown Forman, so he, you know, for literally 60 years of his life or longer was making barrels, was able to pass that down to Zach and his son. And and there's no like training as far as like, let's open a cooperage. You can try to figure it out, but to do it right and not waste a bunch of money or kill a bunch of trees, like, it's mostly like passed down.
So for your clients who are making whiskey, do they specifically find, like, they work with you to find, like, okay, I want this type of flavor in this whiskey, will you help me find a barrel for this? Or do they know going in, okay, I want like a Madeira barrel, I want this, like?
So a lot of distilleries already know what kind of barrel they want.
Okay.
But what I have a lot run into is, I want something different. I don't know what I want. What do you have? Maybe like what you have is what I want. And I'm like, I can give you what I have generally of, but if people were to get real specific, that would help me to narrow it down for them. So it's a lot of just collaborating and like me trying to understand like this wine profile, because I wasn't a wine person, would taste good with this whiskey.
I wonder, do you have to taste them together? Like,
that's what
taste together?
Limestone Branch, Steve Beam, he was right after me in the seminar, and he's like, oh, I buy the wine and start mixing it into my whiskey to see what it, and you can, there are some variables you can't control, like the barrel.
Yeah.
You know, like, what if that barrel's older than what the one he had?
So what's your favorite whiskey? Or can I even ask? You might not want to say.
Oh, no, I have so many favorite whiskeys. What I drink regularly is Buffalo Trace on the rocks. It's a great price point. It's a Kentucky palate. That's what I drink regularly. I like Old Carter. I love all the whiskeys. The one I think is like near and dear to my heart is that Midwinter's Night Dram by High West, just because the bottle is so beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, please market to me. I love to be sold to. The bottle is so beautiful, and it was like traditionally so yummy. So to be a part of that like last release, I'm like, oh, that's cool. I like check bucket list.
That's awesome.
You know,
That's awesome. Is there anybody that you're really want to work with? Is there anybody in the industry?
everyone. I want to work with everyone.
Everybody, you're just
I work with everyone.
Just sign me up.
Yeah, I do. I'd love to know what everybody's doing.
Yeah, that's very cool.
So now your barrels, they mostly come from France.
So yes, we have an office in Napa, Sonoma. It's right outside of Napa, and we have a lot of winery clients there. So I have a lot of domestic producers.
okay.
When it comes to like the finishing barrels that people are seeking after, like your sherry, your sauterne, your cognac, your ports, those are all my European like warehouses. So I would say most of what I sell is definitely from Europe.
Now, what do they use the wine barrels for that aren't a finishing barrel? Would that go to
Back into
the back
wineries.
into wines?
Yeah, winery. And honestly, China right now is like winning every barrel they can get. They're making brandy, and they want every red wine cask they can get. Like so much so that it's like kind of hurting us a little bit. Like so try to balance. Like let's not export everything.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for talking to us. Who knew barrels were so
I know.
fascinating?
I'm glad you think that because I'm like I could talk about barrels all the day,
I think
but
they're cool.
I think it's very
and
cool.
they make a huge difference. I mean, they're really. I don't know who said it yesterday, but it's the soul of the whiskey, and I think that I love that
Yeah.
idea
Yeah.
because it's something that you can't really see. You can't really, it's in the bottle. You don't really, but it's there. And I think that's cool.
that makes me like want to cry.
Yeah, that's so good.
One of the wineries was like, like we baby our barrels because they're alive. And I'm like, oh, I love that. Even if the tree's been cut down,
Right.
it's still breathing. Like
Yeah.
it breathes. Like that's how whiskey goes in, whiskey comes out. That's how we age. And I'm like, yeah, it is breathing. It is alive.
It's cool. It's like
Yeah.
such great storytelling too.
Yeah.
So.
It's all about the story. You have to have a good story.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
That's life.
It's life.
Well,
Yeah.
thank you so much.
Want to join in the fun at New Orleans Bourbon Fest? Tickets are available now. Go to NewOrleansBourbonFest.com for tickets to the 2025 event, which takes place March 19th through the 23rd, 2025. Use the code BREWED10 to get a discount. See you there.